Cassatt, and I am the secretary of MarketingDAO. I'm also the former chief marketing officer at ConsenSys. You can follow me on Twitter at Amanda Cassatt or on Telegram at Amanda Claire. Happy to chat if you want to hear more about marketing dApps or marketing trends in our ecosystem. Last year, I also spoke at ETHDenver, though I don't think I was competing with lunch last time, about basically marketing 101. So the way of thinking that you need to have in order to market your product, starting with knowing your user, finding the appropriate channels to reach your users, crafting key messaging, and then testing to make sure your key messaging is actually resonating using metrics. And that's the link to where the talk lives, if you're interested in that. Mostly I was making the point that marketing a blockchain project or a dApp isn't terribly different from marketing anything else. But today I actually want to talk about how it is different. So what the trends are in marketing decentralized and blockchain projects as opposed to marketing maybe anything else. So there are a couple trends that I've been noticing in the space that I wanted to highlight. One is projects not collecting user data. The second is projects in our space using blockchain-based marketing products themselves. The third one is co-marketing a platform and an application built on that platform. The fourth is figuring out how we update the media narrative after kind of the 2017 ICO narrative took hold. And then the fifth is using novel organizations like DAOs for marketing. So I've seen this throughout the space. The first time I interacted with this was when I was new to ConsenSys and I was working with Tim Coulter and thinking about Truffle. And unlike other projects that I'd done marketing for in the past, he didn't have Google Analytics set up. And so I was confused. How am I going to help market this project if we're not collecting user data and if we're not tracking users? And I learned that philosophically, a lot of projects in this space don't want to collect data on their users. And that's great. It makes sense ethically to not participate in surveillance capitalism, and especially if you're running an open source website and people can see everything you're doing, it helps earn trust if you aren't tracking people. The disadvantages are it's going to be really hard to calculate your cost of customer acquisition because your data is basically a black box. It's going to be harder to optimize your homepage. You're not going to automatically get to know very much about your customer. And it's harder to collect some of your VC funders' favorite metrics, like active users or other kinds of metrics that you aren't collecting. And it's okay to not collect user data, but there are just different approaches you need to take to marketing if that's your situation. One is, if you've chosen from a philosophical perspective not to collect data on your users, make sure you're actually getting credit from your users for being so ethical. One thing I'd love to see is like a pledge of all the different projects that don't collect data on users actually getting circulated and companies being pressured to stop collecting data on users as a result. But if you're putting yourself at a disadvantage for an ethical reason, make sure you tell people that, and so they know that they're getting this from you. There are some more privacy-focused analytics tools. Matomo is an example. CloudFront is another example. You can do first-party tracking instead of third-party tracking. You don't have to, install Google Analytics or a Facebook tracking pixel in order to get some analytics. You also want to be careful about paid campaigns. Like traditionally, a marketer is going to run a bunch of campaigns on platforms like Facebook, AdWords, but if the actual cash register is a black box and you're not tracking what people do as they buy your software, then it's going to be hard for you to pump lots of money into kind of traditional paid marketing campaigns because you won't be able to tell whether they're converting. You can still learn about your users without tracking them. You just need to find consensual ways to learn about them, like setting up a booth and talking to them, or sending out an opt-in survey to learn about your users. And then in terms of demonstrating traction, you can use Web3 metrics. for example, volume, number of accounts created, and you can show investors where those actually live on the blockchain, and they can verify that you're not lying, which is great. The second trend is using our ecosystem's own marketing products. Simple ID is a project that's just coming out of the Tachyon Accelerator, and what they're doing is pulling in on-chain data from Alethea to help dApp projects collect better data and market themselves better. Brave, you're already seeing those prompts if you use Brave to start watching ads in exchange for money. I think we're going to see more of that, especially from marketers who are targeting the type of user who would use the Brave browser. Peppo, it's a social network, but a lot of people are using it to market their projects and to market themselves. And then Earn, really popular, especially for projects that have a token. Get yourself in the hands of the kinds of people that buy and use tokens and get them to start using your platform. That's been super successful. And so we use our own marketing products, and we go to our own media outlets when we have news, and our own influencers. We are relying on each other in the ecosystem for the most accurate information, not on media so much. We're relying on the judgments of people that we know to have the right information as technologists or business leaders, more than a journalist covering the space in some cases. So this is interesting. Traditional platforms, like obviously our ecosystems on Twitter, obviously we should be creating content that's optimized for discoverability and search. But we're not spending money on these platforms because these platforms basically said F you to us in various ways by not letting us market projects with the word crypto, blockchain, et cetera, in them. So you can use all these things, but you can't really spend on them. And so they're basically missing out on all the spend going on in our ecosystem by disallowing advertising. So we've resorted to our own influencers, our own media outlets, our own marketing products, and that's actually made them more robust. And I think we're going to see that a lot more, projects marketing themselves using blockchain-based marketing tools. The third one is, the third trend that I wanted to point out is co-marketing a platform and an application. A few years ago, a lot of projects thought, we're going to build a platform and a bunch of developers are going to come and build on it, and then it'll be great. And then a lot of projects saw that there maybe weren't as many developers coming and building on it, and they needed to demonstrate the functionality of their platform to the world before other people would come and start using it. And so we've seen projects start building on top of the platforms themselves. And yeah, an OST and Peppo, to use that example again, OST technology is the layer 2 on top of Ethereum that powers Peppo, and Peppo is the application built on top of it, that they built, that's for you taking the photo, that they built to demonstrate its functionality, and that's taken off in itself. And that brings up a really interesting marketing question. If you have a platform and an application, do you brand them together? Do you brand them separately? Do you sell them to different people? Are they really facing the same audience? And it really comes down to knowing your customer and who your customer is for your application versus your platform. So this is really interesting. This is something we really need to do. We need to update the narrative in the media about Web3 products, because the ICO boom in 2017, 2018 really it sort of took over that narrative. And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm in the media for projects. And then perhaps a lot of those media outlets or journalists felt sort of burned when they felt like the projects weren't delivering, or they felt like the ecosystem was contracting. Maybe they felt like they'd been fed wrong information, and then the tenor of the interaction between the space and the media started to become one of suspicion, to the point, like, almost overly, I think, to the point where it's hard to get published a really genuinely just optimistic and cheerful story about a new idea on a blockchain. This was really funny. I heard one reporter saying this to another at Ethereal Tel Aviv. They said, one thing I've learned from being in the blockchain space since 2017 is I don't write about the ideas, I just follow the money. And that kind of cynicism from the media covering the space is both not accurate considering the really high quality projects being produced, and comes from this one moment in time that I think we need to move on from, because we're seeing a lot of interesting projects ship right now in 2020, and I think we're going to see even more project shipping. And these are in many cases projects that got funded during the boom of 2017, 2018, and then everyone was like, "Where's the project? You got funded. Where is it?" But that's actually a pretty normal cycle, that it would take some time between getting your project funded and actually delivering it. That's not a strange thing. That's not a scam. That's just a normal development cycle. So what does it take to swing the narrative pendulum back in favor of Web3 projects to be something more appropriate for how exciting these projects really are? One thing that is exciting in that direction is projects launching with tech that's ready to use from the get-go. That's something that I've seen more and more. Audius and Orchid from our ecosystem, Hedera Hashgraph also did that. So having a token that also has usable tech behind it from day one, I think that's a really exciting development. This is also the year to talk about user growth. I think what a lot of media outlets are hungry to hear about and eager to write positive stories about are products that are actually converting users and providing real value. And so one way to attract attention kind of narratively is to be able to demonstrate user growth and to highlight user stories. One thing that's been pointed out almost as like a criticism of the Ethereum ecosystem is that there's a lifestyle brand. But I actually think lifestyle brands are a strength in terms of our ecosystem's ability to market itself, not a weakness. We have, the bufficorn. We have so much imagery in this ecosystem. We have so many projects that are really good at, drawing people in and having memorable branding. I think it's really wonderful, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and we're going to see projects demonstrate their marketing chops by building these lifestyle brands. Because you go to San Francisco or you go to Berlin, and Ethereum isn't just a technology, it's also a lifestyle. People are going to blockchain meetups to see their friends. It's a community, it's a religion, and that can be a positive. The fifth trend is novel organizations like DAOs being used to help projects do marketing. So the MarketingDAO is obviously one example that I am shilling in particular, and there are a bunch of really great MarketingDAO people here. Metacartel, so Metacartel is helping a lot of projects actually market themselves, dApps in the space. MarketingDAO is focused on growing Ethereum as a brand, so taking in proposals for projects that would help get the Ethereum meme out to more people. And a quick pitch for MarketingDAO. Whenever I see stuff like this, it makes me think about how much we need MarketingDAO. If you go to random blockchain conferences around the world, you see, a booth for Neo, you see a booth for Tron. Bitcoin often has a presence and a real ground game, but there isn't that for Ethereum, because it really is decentralized, and it is a decentralized community, but it's not being represented in the world the way some of these other platforms are, and it really needs to get its name out there and have that booth. And I think actually a DAO is a great way to get the funding in place to make sure that that sponsorship gets taken out at that conference, that knowledgeable person in the area about Ethereum gets a proper t-shirt and gets flown over to the event so they can sit in the booth and answer questions about Ethereum. It sounds like not rocket science, but someone needs to do it and kind of own that ground game. And that's one of the things that MarketingDAO really wants to do. And then you see other platforms like Ripple, XRP, and the XRP army. I mean, you see like really robust, if annoying, ground games being waged. And I think Ethereum needs to figure out its own way to do that in its own way with its own voice and style. So thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in MarketingDAO, the website's marketingdao.org. The Twitter is @MarketingDAO, #@MarketingDAO. And email us to get involved, founders@marketingdao.org. You can pledge right now on DAO House, or you can email us. And also feel free to get in touch with me if you'd like, and happy to chat. Also happy to answer any questions if there's time.
Yeah, do we have any questions?
Could you say more about MarketingDAO and how people join and just what membership in it looks like?
What membership is? We've got our membership chair right here. Do you want to give Alex the microphone to talk about membership? I'm decentralizing this talk.
Hey. Yes, there are 3 ways to join as a member. So we have the founding members, which are the financial contributors that we are accepting right now. We are targeting $250,000 of fundraising for Q1, and we have raised $150,000 from ConsenSys. Otherwise, if you want to contribute, we are going to open up forms to contribute as a member, and so we could perhaps assign you for proposals of the grants we're going to give out to market Ethereum activities. And the third way is simply to be a supporter. We have a Telegram group that you can find on marketingdao.org. And yeah, feel free to reach out and DM Amanda or myself. And yeah, we'll help you out.
Yeah, so founders@marketingdao.org is a great email address to reach out to get involved, or come find us, or pledge directly on DAO House. Also, if you're curious about what kinds of projects are already in the pipeline to be funded by MarketingDAO, you can go to the #MarketingDAO community in Peppo, where we asked all of our proposers who made it to the final round to make a 30-second video about what they are proposing. So you can check that all out there.
Was there another question? Okay. This way.
All the way, thanks. Was just wondering, when you were saying, so if you are not taking in analytics of people coming to your site and using your stuff, any pro tips on like how to communicate that? I know you said to use it, but like, I don't know, do you just on your webpage like, hey, we're cool because we don't track you, or I don't know, any better ways to communicate that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I want to help a bunch of projects do that. I think it'd be great if there existed like a pledge or a, like an icon that everyone used on their website to show that they are, privacy, like signed on to a privacy petition. That thing doesn't exist right now, but it should. What I'd recommend doing, I think a banner is great. I think it could be cute to have that banner. You know how like they require you to have that banner where you opt in to some tracking and cookies and whatnot. You could have one that says that you don't have that, but with that same aesthetic, which could be really cute. I would also recommend having it in your privacy policy, having it in your content. You could even write a blog post and do some thought leadership about why it's important to you as a company to preserve user data and privacy. I would just shout it from the rooftops, because I think users actually do really like that, especially people in this space who tend to be more privacy focused. And if you are handicapping yourself a little bit by not collecting data, you should be getting the benefit of people liking you for doing that. But yeah, I'd love to figure out how to I'd love to coordinate a lot of companies in the space that intentionally don't do tracking, to sign a pledge and to really help move the market in that direction, because I think we're moving in a direction where users are going to start to demand not being tracked and not being commodified. So definitely chat with me. I'd love to make something bigger with that.
Hey, I was wondering, how do you react to companies that feel like it's more like shilling when you're marketing? Like, how do you tell them like the balance between shilling versus like actually you should market yourself and you should be part of the ecosystem?
Yeah, so it's funny because like the section with the sponsors here is called the shill zone, which I think is very on brand for ETHDenver, and we've come up with this word, shilling, that's used in our ecosystem. That's like certainly derogatory in terms of marketing activities, humorously derogatory. That's fine. I think making fun of yourself for shilling as a brand is sometimes funny. I think the best marketing shouldn't feel like marketing. It should feel like just crossing the chasm between the product and the users. saying something like, come use our product today, or speaking in a really advertorial voice isn't going to resonate with users in this kind of ecosystem, and it will sound shilly and not resonate. But if you're communicating almost, like I've worked with projects that want to communicate in an incredibly neutral, factual, just the facts, ma'am tone, and not have any flair to their marketing, but you're still doing marketing activities by composing the copy that's in that tone and pushing that out to their target segment that would never identify that as being shilling so much as just being communicating about the project, even if you've been very thoughtful and careful and placed it on just the right channels with just the right tone, with just the right call to action. Ideally, for people that react to marketing that it's shilling, for those people, when you market to them, it shouldn't feel like that. It should be something that's going to feel natural.
Hey, all right. So as a fellow marketer, right, I'm always curious about kind of the dichotomy almost between collecting user behavior and the data, right? And as a marketer, I don't care about the data, but I do want to see the behavior so that I can learn how to better serve the customers, right? So any tips or recommendations or tools that you might have mentioned about how to kind of get around that issue, you understand? So to track those KPIs that can give me the information I need to make better decisions.
Yeah, so there's enough demand for more privacy-preserving analytics tools that there are already some companies that do that. Matomo is a really good example. You can have some first-party tracking on your website that gives you some analytics without going whole hog and having like a Facebook pixel on your website. So I would look into those things. I would, if you don't do that at all, I would do user testing and do it manually and see how people actually use your website, see how people use your tools, give them surveys, do kind of consensual data collection. It's much more manual, and yeah, I would recommend like some of the first-party analytics tools that don't track everyone all over the internet. And if you aren't comfortable doing any of those, then you are going to have to do it manually. But if you're like a privacy-focused product, for example, or if you're serving a privacy-focused audience, probably the benefit that you're getting from not collecting their data and by cementing your trust with them is worth it. So it's a calculation based on how you want to position your brand, who your audience is, and how your company wants to act ethically.
And I think that's about right.
Great, thank you so much, and feel free to come chat with me about MarketingDAO.